So we're going to get started, but there's one very, very important person that I would like you all to hear from first. We, as all young people, as all youth, didn't want this just to be about youth. We wanted it to be intergenerational. So we reached out to a wonderful group of people called the Elders, who strive for protection of the planet and protection of the people on the planet. And we ended up being able to have a one-to-one session with Mrs. Mary Robinson, who was the former President of Ireland, and she put together a very, very special introductory video for us. So I'd like to invite you all to watch the introduction by Mrs. Mary Robinson.
I'm Mary Robinson, former President of Ireland, former UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, and currently chair of the Elders, a group of independent global leaders who were brought together by Nelson Mandela in 2007 to carry on his legacy and work for peace and human rights. I've also been working for at least 15 years now for climate justice, taking into account the injustice of how climate affects the poorest countries and poorest communities, and also the intergenerational injustice that children around the world have reminded us about in their Fridays for Future, holding us to account because we're not securing a safe, good future for them. I was pleased to be involved in 2008 in the ocean race. Indeed, I was godmother to the winning vessel, the Ericsson 4. And I remember being impressed at the time with the efforts to ensure that there was a lot of discussion of sustainability, of tackling pollution, all of those things. And I understand that the race this year is going to try even harder because even more young people are going to be involved. And I'm very happy about that because as chair of the Elders, we're very keen on intergenerational discussion. Indeed, I would encourage some of you to look at the Elders website, theelders.org, where you'll see very good blogs by young climate activists. So the Elders are learning also from these young activists how we can work better. And I have another hat that I think is relevant to this discussion because I'm also a champion of the campaign for nature and the campaign about 30% of the land and 30% of the ocean being protected. So basically, we want to see 30% of global ocean to be designated marine protected areas by 2030. And I think it would be wonderful if young people will really engage on that and really engage on addressing the pollution, especially the plastic in our oceans, which is hurting seafood, but also the whole food chain. It's affecting us as well. And the fact that we're very linked to what happens in the ocean, we're linked to sea ocean rise. I gather that if there's a 1 meter rise, 75 million people around the world would have to move from where they live. I mean, we really have to be aware of how vulnerable we are. And we've seen that now with COVID-19, that a virus can so affect the world, but maybe we can learn new lessons and good lessons from COVID, that science matters and government matters and even compassion, neighborliness matters. So I actually have great confidence and faith in young people. And I know that this race is followed by a lot of young people who engage in many ways to show that we need to protect our ocean in order to protect our future. I would really encourage young people to engage with climate justice, to see that there are about five layers of injustice. There's the injustice to the poorest countries and communities, which ties in with the kind of racial justice as well. There's the gender injustice, that women are more affected than girls. There's the intergenerational injustice. There's the injustice of different pathways of countries to their development. Rich countries in the developed world, industrialized countries, built their economies on fossil fuel and have to wean themselves off. But the poorer countries have a challenge to try to build up their economies on clean energy. They need the investment and the technology. And the fifth layer of injustice is against nature itself, the loss of biodiversity, the extinction of species, what's happening in our oceans. So there are so many different ways in which young people can address all these injustices. And it's happening. I'm really impressed by the children. I'm impressed by the way young people are stepping up because they see this as being essentially part of the only way forward. We want to come out of COVID-19 remembering that other crisis, the climate crisis, and come out of that into a sustainable New Deal kind of world. And young people are absolutely essential for that.
So a big thank you to Mrs. Mary Robinson for that incredible intro. We couldn't have done better ourselves, so that's wonderful. But now let's hear from some young people to keep it nice and intergenerational. I'd like to introduce Leela Devine. She's a high school senior and a lab member of the Daniel K. Inouye College of Pharmacy at the University of Hawaii at Hilo. She's been diving since the age of 11, and her research focuses on marine pharmacology and serves as an Earth Echo Youth Leadership Council member. If you're listening to Leela and have any questions for her throughout her speech, do feel free to leave them in the comments box and I'll be sure to pick them up at the end of the session. Over to you, Leela.
Yeah, so hi everyone. Thank you for that amazing introduction. My name is Leela Devine, and I'm here to kind of go over what is 30 by 30, why is this initiative being put forward, and what is its significance? So 30 by 30 is a call to action to safeguard at least 30% of the world's ocean by 2030 through a network of highly protected marine areas where no destructive or extractive activities like fishing or mining can take place. What we're really trying to do is work on building the resilience of ocean life to adapt to climate change and to buffer it from other human threats to increase biodiversity and increase reef health through marine protected areas. I think that the power of the ocean is thoroughly underestimated. It's home to 80% of all life on Earth. It covers 70% of the Earth's surface, yet is still extremely underprotected. It plays a critical role in maintaining our climate and has absorbed 30% of excess carbon dioxide emissions. It's the largest provider of protein in the world, sustaining 3 billion people who depend on seafood as their primary source of protein. And it generates around 1.5 trillion US dollars in global economic activity. And so coral reef die-offs, collapsing fish populations, and species extinctions are evidence of the escalating ocean crisis brought about by environmental stressors that are eroding the ocean's capability to function as our life support system and to maintain homeostasis on this planet. Defending its capacity to produce oxygen, sequester carbon, and provide food and livelihoods for billions of people is vital. And that isn't all. The ocean is a pivotal point of research in the medical field, which is something that I've personally experienced as a scuba diver working in a pharmaceutical lab. And so through my time in research, I've found that the coral reefs here where I'm from in Hilo, Hawaii, are home to a range of unexplored microbes and compounds that exhibit strong anti-proliferative activity against prostate and ovarian cancer cell lines. And so right now you're probably thinking, a potential cure to cancer from a soft coral? I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's actually true. And the thing that I've found that's really, really disappointing is that the marine organisms that have shown to be most valuable to us in this field are those whose habitats are especially susceptible to rising water temperatures, to ocean acidification, as well as other effects of pollution, which is exactly what we're working to combat with the 30 by 30 initiative. So overall, 30 by 30 is acknowledging that a healthy ocean is fundamental to a healthy planet and makes a hopeful future for generations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leela. That was amazing. We're going to move on to our next speaker, who is Damie Stewart. Damie is a marine ecologist, recently graduated from Duke University with a degree in biology and environmental science. She's an avid sailor and raced lasers nationally and internationally, and is also an Earth Echo Youth Leadership Council alumni.
Great, thank you so much, Eimear, for that introduction. I'm going to share my screen with you all, so bear with me for one moment. Okay, well, thank you all for being here. So I'm going to talk with you about marine protected areas. So what are marine protected areas? Marine protected areas, also known as MPAs, are defined as areas of the ocean set aside for long-term conservation aims. They're the only mainstream conservation focus and area-based measure to increase quality and extent of ocean protection. MPAs offer nature-based solutions to support global efforts toward climate change, adaptation, and mitigation. Currently, 7.5% of the ocean is protected, but only less than 2% of the ocean is covered by exclusively no-take MPAs. You can see these areas highlighted here on the map. The highlighted pink and purple spots are where these MPAs are located around the world. A little bit of a disclaimer. I want to mention that this percentage of 7.5% will change depending on where you get your data. This is because not all parks are protected equally. Sometimes these parks are what we refer to as paper parks. They're protected on paper, like you see here on this map, but they are not protected in real life. So in reality, the percentage of what is actually protected in the ocean is much lower than what is properly protected. I just want you to keep this in mind when talking about marine protected areas. So all this sounds great and all. Do these marine protected areas actually work? Let me tell you about Cabo Pulmo National Marine Park. Scripps Institute of Oceanography called it the world's most robust marine reserve. Cabo Pulmo National Marine Reserve is located near the end of Baja California in the Sea of Cortez. Jacques Cousteau called this area the aquarium of the world. This marine protected area was established in 1995 by local citizens that wanted to restore the depleted coral reef fishes and other marine life that had been depleted due to overfishing. The success of this marine protected area can be attributed to the persistent effort and support by the local citizens who enforced the no-take restriction within the boundaries of this marine protected area. After a 10-year study conducted by the Scripps Institute of Oceanography, they found that the total fish in the reserve increased by more than 460% from 1999 to 2009. The total amount of top predators, like sharks and other various species, which are key indicators of coral health, increased by 11 times over this 10-year period, and the amount of carnivores increased by 4 times. The authors of this study said that fish communities at a depleted site have the ability to recover to a level that is comparable to that of a site of a remote, pristine location that has never before been fished on by humans. If that doesn't speak to the power of marine protected areas, I don't know what does. There are examples of success stories of other marine protected areas all around the world. Cabo Pulmo is not alone. There's hope for our oceans and the species that inhabit them. We just have to take collaborative action before it is too late. And with that, I will pass it on.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Our final speaker today is Laura. Laura Hampton is a member of the Earth Echo Youth Leadership Council as well. She is a keen sailor from Northern Ireland and is currently studying international relations with sustainable development at the University of St. Andrews. And just a reminder, if anybody has any questions for our 3 speakers, you can start putting them into the chat now for our Q&A session after Laura's speech. Over to you, Laura.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much, Eimear, for the introduction. So today I'm going to be talking about young people's importance in the ocean conservation movement and how adults can support and elevate the youth voice to achieve the 30 by 30, which Leila was chatting about. Whenever I say the word youth, what does this conjure up in each of your minds? To some people, youth is associated with opportunity, excitement, and imagination, while to others it can be associated with a lack of experience or immaturity. To me, youth is a generation with a rapidly unfolding desire for knowledge, filled with ambition and imagination. With youth accounting for 1.9 billion people in the world's population, our voice could not be more relevant. Recently, Earth Echo launched the Ocean Echo 30 by 30 campaign to elevate youth leadership in this movement, and our recent summit was attended by 390 youths across 32 countries. Personally, seeing the passion involved in the summit was phenomenal and showed a true opportunity for this movement to tap into youth. So if youth are an integral voice and are intrigued to be involved in the 30 by 30 campaign, what is holding them back? To me, it's experience and inclusion. So often, young people are not included in discussions which matter most for the planet which we will inherit. So how can we improve upon this? Some organisations are already leading the way. The Ocean Race Summit right now is showing an incredible example of integrating youth voices and perspectives by including this in the summit. And Earth Echo, a youth group founded on the belief that young people have the power to change the world, is also setting an incredible example. Their Youth Leadership Committee is the voice driving the development and implementation of global programmes to inspire young people. Personally, being part of the Youth Leadership Committee and seeing how committed the whole organisation is, from the founder, Felipe, the board of directors, and right down to all of us on the Youth Leadership Committee, being so valued within the organisation is really empowering when they're so invested in what we have to say and really genuinely value our input and aren't just ticking a box for youth involvement. So in light of this, I challenge each of you here today to act to include youth in the movement to protect 30% of the ocean by 2030. Or if you're a young person, to get involved and get engaged. Earth Echo is launching a new toolkit in the coming month to help young people lead virtual educational events in your community, the link to which will be shared in the chat. So I will leave with a challenge. The world has 1.9 billion developing minds with capacity to make serious change. What are you or your organisation doing to elevate the youth voice to help achieve 30 by 30? That is my challenge, and Leila and Damie have 2 challenges which they would also like to add.
So I think when presentations for organizations are given to youth, especially about a lot of these larger scale global issues, either learning about ocean acidification, the climate crisis, water quality, and global impacts on minorities, we're able to get very educated about the topic, right? We hear so much about it. We're made aware that it exists. We post about it on social media, maybe add a few petitions here and there. And a lot of people, I guess, in like young term slang here, you'd call them, yeah, we're woke. We're woke people. And no one really pinpoints what the specific action items for youth are. And that's something that I found, you know, just like educating myself on new topics. I think a lot of projects that we're looking at, they're well underway or they're already going on, they're being started, but there's nowhere for us to assert ourselves into the situation. And so a lot of us might resort in wanting to start our own initiatives, but we don't exactly know how to do so. And so I think I challenge organizations to start advertising and bringing up board positions at the start of an initiative, especially for youth. I think it's so important for us to be involved from the start of a project, making these positions, not petitions, available to youth on this wide scale and not just having it to a small closed off group of people. I think getting that input is something that's going to help us drive the future.
Absolutely. And I'm going to take a similar vein and I'm going to challenge the youth to, 1, educate yourself and educate everyone around you. Like we see in Cabo Pulmo, it was this collaborative effort of all the citizens to work together, and that's why this MPA was so successful. It's because they took that collaborative action to educate themselves of why it was important, and that's why it was successful. So first of all, collaborate yourself, or educate yourself, collaborate together to make it happen. But also, we need the organizations to offer these opportunities, but go ahead and reach out to these organizations. If they're not going to create these opportunities, email them. Keep emailing people and make these opportunities for yourself as well. Reach out. Just be persistent as you can. If you keep knocking on doors, it's gonna happen. Send those emails, make the calls. When COVID's over, go ahead and knock on those doors. Just keep pushing. You will find an opening and make it happen. But educate yourself, educate those around you. We can make a difference when you have the backing you need. So we can do this. We just need to work together.
Amazing. So thank you to Laura for putting that question to Damie and Leila as well. I think we all learned something there. But now to segue nicely, we're going to get to your questions. So just to bear in mind, everybody now is going to be promoted to a speaker. Please keep your microphones muted for now unless you want to raise your hand, and then I will call out your name and you can unmute your mic and ask your question. It is up to you whether or not you would like to turn on your webcam or leave it off. So we'll start seeing people coming into the room now. If you check on the toolbar on the bottom of your screen, you will hopefully see a little raise hand button. If anybody would like to raise their hand to ask a question, please do so, and I will pick up on your question as soon as possible. But for the meantime, we did have 2 questions in the chat, so I'm going to put one of these questions out to all 3 of our speakers, and feel free to answer whoever would like to come in on it. So the first question is from Gertrude, and Gertrude says, one of the missing people at the table seems to be K-12 educators, or for me and Laura, primary school educators. How do you think you would excite teachers so that they reach out to the students, particularly for those students who may not have the experience that some young people have? Maybe Leela, as a high school student, do you want to come in and talk about that one?
Yeah, okay. Through my time, at least at school here in Hawaii, I can say that environmental science has been brought up a lot more than in other regions. And I think that's simply because a lot of us here are so in tuned in nature and our surroundings, right? We've grown up by the ocean. So there's always that environmental aspect. But I personally think it hasn't been emphasized enough until I got into high school and until I took the initiative to sign up for an AP environmental science class. And I think a lot of that might have to do with a lot of teachers are just not really familiar in knowing how to reach out to their students about like these topics. And I think one of the first steps that we need to do is maybe get them on some of these initiatives, right? Maybe have them attend some webinars, talk to some people. I think the more that not only youth have to educate themselves, I feel like at this point it's everyone. Teachers have to educate themselves, change makers, people who lead these initiatives, organizations, being able to create that like connected sphere, I think is something that's really important and something that needs to be emphasized in the education system, which basically has to start with people reaching out to teachers and telling them about these initiatives and how we should go about them for the future.
Thanks so much, Leela. Anybody else want to come in on that, or will we move to the next question? Move to the next one. Perfect. Just everybody remember that if you would like to ask a question, there's a raise hand option down the bottom, or you can type your question into the chat. If you do raise your hand, I'll see it on the screen and I'll be able to prompt you to unmute yourself. There's instructions on how to raise your hand down in the chat box there too. So the next question that came in was from Michelle, and Michelle said, what do you think older people can do to assist younger people in this mission? Maybe we'll start with Damie on that one. Do you want to come in on that one, Damie?
Yeah, I would love to. Something that I've been running into of late, I've just graduated. I've been working on research a lot of late, and something that I've been struggling with is I'm in research and I have this position. I've been really fortunate to continue working on research. It's trying to break through into organizations. I keep knocking on doors, but I don't necessarily have the credibility at this time to break through that barrier. But I have a lot of connections. So when you have a credibility and a standing within an organization, just serving as a mentor and helping us establish those relationships to help break through that ice. I think I've had some really lovely mentors throughout the past couple of years that have really helped foster those relationships, and they can help me. They realize, they've been able to help me with my research. You know what you're doing, you're able to do this, but you don't necessarily have a university backing at this time because you're in the process of applying to grad school, or it doesn't even have to be in an academic field. It could be in a conservation field, whatever it may be. It's just early on in a career, and that's what a lot of the youth don't have right now. We're still in that early process, but we want to help. So if you can provide that extra voice and that extra backing to help us break through, because we want to help, I think that's the best thing you can do, is just help us have that voice so we can break through the barrier. Just serve as a mentor, I think is the best thing you all can do, because we are ready to help. That would be the best thing. And thank you for offering. It really means the world to all of us.
Perfect. Thank you, Damie. Laura, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, I will add something to that. So on the back of what Damie said, I think so many adults, and like yourself, those offered up, they just want to know how to help. And one of the most phenomenal things is just giving access to your platform and giving us understanding and experience of what you experience on a daily basis, because it's all new to us. So just being really, really intentional with the young people around you or in your community, and reaching out to them and letting them know that you want them to be involved can mean so much. So that's my addition to Davies.
Perfect, thank you. We have a hand up from, I can't pronounce the name, Luigi Roginoni. I probably mispronounced that entirely, I apologize, but feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yep, all right. Hello, everybody. And yes, my name is Luigi Rognoni. I'm from Italy. And I have one little question about when we talk about education and say educate ourselves or educate, I don't know, our children or boys at home. And I don't think it is only a matter of educate about not throwing I don't know, paper on the road and things like that, but it's much more in educating on approaching the life in a little different way, in the way that probably my generation has approached. Also, we try to do the best, but we should for sure try to do better and better. So how we can inspire more young generation to have a type of life that will be much more sustainable. Because for sure the people that is here and the four girls that have this very nice talk today has something inside, and so they come from a culture that is already prepared for that. But what could be the best way to inspire more young people to take this path? Thank you.
Thank you, Luigi. Is there anybody that would like to come in on that from our three speakers? You can raise your hand or I'll pick someone.
I can go.
Yeah, go.
I think one of the biggest things is, at least with me, I've grown up with so many people around me that I've been inspired by. My father was a dive master, and he was a dive master in California before he moved to Hawaii. And he's the reason why I got into diving. And it was mainly from hearing all of his stories. I think one of the best ways to get yourself involved in a field, or to really understand how to start leading these sustainable lifestyles, or to start learning from people around you, doesn't necessarily start with education, but maybe getting inspired before you educate yourself. Learning about the stories of other people, having them describe not only the situations that they've been in, but also with me, it was describing some of the really cool basket sponges that he had seen, or going out to British Columbia and all of these other places and really hearing how engaged he was with the ocean. That's what got me started. And I think really listening to those stories is what would get a lot of people, at least in our generation, going. Especially now, you know, we have so much technology. We can film all of this underwater stuff in such high quality definition. And I think a lot of the storytelling and a lot of the showing people on how to immerse themselves into these fields is what's going to get us places.
Thank you, Leila. We have time for one final question, and I can see that Kieran McGlynn has his hand up. If you'd like to unmute yourself, Kieran.
Hi, Eimear. Great job, guys, on the panel discussion. I'm just joined in from Dublin in Ireland here. I'd just like to follow up on a point Damie made there earlier, and it's one I've faced myself. I'm 35, coming 36, and in my industry, what I've noticed is in corporations, everyone's operating in silos. So you've got different departments, don't share information. And what I've seen as well is different industries don't share information. There's no crossover. And in 2016, I'd approached a manager of mine in relation to setting up an aviation platform which would raise funding from all players in the industry, whether it's aircraft manufacturers, engine manufacturers, leasing companies, airlines, the whole industry across, and reallocate funding to three key pillars: conservation, sustainability, and education, underpinning the first two. And after many attempts to explain that really through, I have developed it a bit more in the background myself across the different players in the industry. And I will be looking for support in the next 4 to 5 months from anyone with information that will back up what we're discussing today: how to improve sustainability, how to fund initiatives, the indigenous people, local fishing communities, because it has to be a circular economy. So, Damien, you're absolutely right. A key thing, like, the youth are very open-minded and aware and empathetic. People, over time, they lose that willingness to change their mind, to adapt, to be flexible, to consider other people's fortunes. And what you all need to do is look for roles in corporations, whether it's in GSE, CSR, and try to make an impact through that, and always be willing to reach out across the divide as well. Try to get your tentacles into other corporations, other industries, try to pull everyone along with you. Quite a task, but there's enough of us out there trying, we might be able to make some significant change.
Thank you so much, Kieran. That's great advice. I really appreciate it. So we have one final treat for everybody who came to watch us here today. So we are about to end the session, but no doubt everybody will feel as though they would like to make an immediate difference, but with COVID, the usual call to actions might not be possible. So I have a final question to prompt Laura to share with you our final piece, which is, what can people do to take action on achieving 30 by 30 right now?
Hi everyone, back again. So you're super stoked and you've heard lots of exciting reasons of why we should be taking action, and you're now wondering, what can I do? So 2020 has marked many, many things, but one thing it does mark is 200 years since Antarctica was first discovered. And while that is incredible, it also marks the year when the highest ever temperatures were recorded on the continent. And this is really damaging environmentally because Antarctica is so critical for stabilizing the climate and sustaining fish and human populations all over the world. So what we are doing right now is calling on world leaders to protect Antarctica and deliver the largest act of ocean protection in history. So right now you can act and have an impact by signing the petition, which is going to follow a short video, and being a part of what could be the largest ocean protection act in history. So the video is just going to follow me now.
Within our reach is the creation of the largest sanctuary on Earth. So vast, it defies our imagination. So majestic, it captivates humanity. So we rise up and take notice. Antarctica's great southern ocean, the icy heartbeat of our planet. What happens here affects all life on Earth. Yet time, which once seemed so infinite, is no longer an ally to this magical kingdom. As the deadly embrace of our changing climate warms the rest of the world, the freezing spell cast here by time is being undone. But from the ashes of fear, possibility is born. Let the story of this fabled land be a tale for the ages. Join the greatest conservation act in human history, the protection of Antarctica's great southern ocean.
But we've come to the end of our session. I want to thank everybody who showed up today, mainly because just you deciding to go to this action lab instead of another means that you are already supporting youth in a way that we are so grateful for. So we really do appreciate you for being here. I just want to make one announcement that there was some difficulty earlier on with people trying to access the website for the live stream. Just to let all of you know that if you're still experiencing difficulty getting back onto the live stream, you have all been emailed a direct link, and that link should work in getting you back into the live stream normally. So thank you all so much, and hopefully we will see you throughout the rest of today and the rest of the Ocean Race Summit. Thank you for joining us.